Have you ever heard of a service called ProtonMail? It's been out for nearly 10 years now, and it's extremely popular amongst enthusiasts. In fact, they have over 70 million users, but the average person has never even heard of this service. This is quite a shame because ProtonMail was essentially designed to be a better version of Gmail from every aspect. For example, ProtonMail doesn't even know who you are. They don't even ask for a name to open a ProtonMail email address. Conversely, Gmail asks for full name, date of birth, gender, and phone number. The only information that you have to give ProtonMail is another email address or phone number, just so that they can verify that you're actually a human and that you're not just trying to open a crap ton of accounts. But even this data is only briefly stored and is promptly deleted after verification is completed. The privacy doesn't just stop at sign-up either. Proton also doesn't track your IP address or review any of the emails that you send or receive. Additionally, all of the emails that you send and receive are completely end-to-end encrypted, which is not the case with the Gmail. Gmail does encrypt your emails when possible, but their encryption is inherently inferior because they rely on something called TLS encryption. The problem is that TLS encryption only works when both the sending and receiving server support the standard. We should also note that Google holds all of the keys to said encryption, so while TLS encryption may protect you against hackers, it doesn't actually protect your privacy against Google. ProtonMail, on the other hand, uses something called PGP encryption, which is not server dependent. The only person who has the keys to open your email is the actual recipients of your email. So, objectively speaking, ProtonMail blows Gmail out of the water in terms of privacy and security. Yet, Gmail still destroys ProtonMail when it comes to market share. So, why does no one want ProtonMail despite it offering everything that people supposedly want? Taking a look back, one of the main factors that's held back ProtonMail over the years is that they don't have a very strong background. Virtually every popular email client that has ever existed has been backed by a mega tech company whose main business was not email. For example, AOL was AOL, Yahoo was Yahoo, Hotmail was Microsoft, and Gmail was of course Google. This is no coincidence. The reality is that creating an email service is not only expensive, but it's not exactly lucrative either. I mean, have you ever wondered how Gmail even makes money in the first place? Historically, email providers made money by showing you ads throughout the UI, but that's not really a thing in 2023. The way that email providers make money today is by sending you personalized ads to your inbox. You know that promotions tab under your Gmail account? That's why that's there. But virtually no one ever opens up that tab or clicks on those emails. So most email users don't make the provider any money directly. But companies like Google and Microsoft are more than okay with that. Their goal with Gmail and Outlook aren't to make money. Their goal is to simply control market share and create synergy between all of their services. This makes their data collection and ad targeting way easier. When you log into your Google account on a new computer, they already know exactly who you are. So the next time you search on Google, they don't have to waste time serving you low-quality generic ads. Instead, they can serve you targeted ads that have a far greater likelihood of converting. As you can see, email services are much more of a customer acquisition avenue as opposed to a real money driver. And this makes it extraordinarily difficult for a company to be built around just doing emails, which ProtonMail has figured out firsthand. These struggles date back to the launch of ProtonMail itself. Within just 3 days of beta launch, ProtonMail was running into server capacity issues. This forced them to temporarily suspend new signups until they could expand server capacity. While understandable, this isn't exactly a great first impression. To make things worse, they had to resort to crowdfunding to actually continue growing. Fortunately, their supporters were extremely generous and helped them destroy their fundraising goal. But PayPal had other plans. PayPal would end up freezing $250,000 worth of donations because they apparently had concerns regarding the legality of encryption. Proton would eventually work through all of these obstacles, but these are simply examples of pain points that their competitors never even had to deal with. Well, actually, technically, Google did have server capacity issues because they were trying to offer 200 times more storage than everyone else. But they actually managed to turn that into an advantage. They maintained Gmail as an invite-only platform for many years, which created an allure of exclusivity. For Proton, however, these obstacles were truly just obstacles. Aside from facing infrastructure challenges that made it difficult to grow, Proton also had to address the elephant in the room, which was how they were actually going to make money. Given that they weren't collecting any user data, they couldn't create or deliver any targeted ads. They could deliver generic ads, but that would kind of go against their whole brand image, so that was off limits as well. This meant that the only way that Proton could reliably make money was from their consumers themselves, which is not exactly a bad thing. The reason that consumers have to pay Proton is because with Proton, they're actually the customers. With every other email service, the advertisers are the customers and the users are actually the products. With that being said though, people have become accustomed to getting email for free. So Proton has to work through a pretty large mental barrier. We should note that Proton does have a free tier, but it's not sufficient for any sort of professional application. The free tier only comes with 500 megabytes of storage, and if you're regularly emailing documents, presentations, and spreadsheets, you'll probably run out of storage by the time you even get to 100 emails. You can boost this to 1 gigabyte by completing a few additional steps, but that doesn't really make the situation all that much better. And I don't think any of us want to go back to the days of constantly deleting old emails. So realistically, you would want to spring for at least the ProtonMail Plus plan, which comes in at €5 per month or €48 per year. On the theme of protecting your privacy, we should note that Proton accepts cryptocurrency payments, so you don't have to give them your credit card details or anything like that. Anyway, if you do spring for this plan, you'll actually get a service that's comparable to Gmail. You get an account that can support up to 10 email addresses, 15 gigabytes of storage, custom domains, and auto-reply features. You also get access to the Proton Drive, Proton Calendar, and even the Proton VPN. If you take it one step further and spring for the Proton Unlimited plan, you'll have to pay €12 per month or €120 per year. But this will boost your email address limit to 15, your storage limit to 500 gigabytes, and your custom domain limit to 3. So Proton is absolutely a viable email service, but to unlock this functionality, you have to pay. And though people say that they value their privacy and security over everything else, the reality is that most people don't value those enough to pay for it, especially because they've gotten used to not paying for it. We should also note that paying 50 or €120 per year for an email account is only viable in the Western world. And by the looks of it, Proton has already won over much of this market. So until Proton is able to afford to give out more generous free tiers, I suspect that they'll continue to struggle when it comes to breaking in to the mainstream market. Even if we put aside Proton shortfalls in terms of infrastructure and revenue, they still have to overcome likely the biggest obstacle, which is the obstacle of convenience. And I'm not talking about the convenience of ProtonMail itself. They have a beautiful, modern, bubbly UI that's on par with, if not better than the competition. So it's not the convenience of the UI that will hold them back. Rather, it's the convenience of the email address itself. While people don't like big companies collecting personal data to make money, this data collection is what allows for many of the conveniences that we've become accustomed to. Take login with Google, for example. The only reason that this service works is because Google is able to pass on all of the data that the service needs from your Google account. But Proton wouldn't even be able to autofill your name, much less your phone number, address, or payment information. Proton is trying to address this shortfall with their recent acquisition of Simple Login, but it's not clear how useful this service will be given Proton's overall goals of privacy. It's not just new account creation that will become more difficult either. It'll become substantially harder to sync changes between devices. For example, let's say you told Chrome on your computer to save your password for Amazon. With a Google account, the Chrome on your iPhone and iPad would automatically know this password. And the next time you try to access Amazon on your iPhone or iPad, it'll autofill. Surely, giving that up is just a minor inconvenience, but this could become a lot more annoying when you get a new computer or laptop altogether. Imagine how many Chrome extensions that you would have to reinstall, how many passwords you would have to re-enter, and how many files you would have to transfer. Ironically, these were all givens when buying a new device 10 to 15 years ago. But thanks to the cloud, cookies, and yes, data collection, these have all become struggles of the past for most of us. By switching to ProtonMail, however, you would lose many of the perks that come along with having a Gmail/Google account. But at least those are just inconveniences as opposed to full-on obstacles. The reality is that ProtonMail also comes along with a game-breaking obstacle. Here's the thing, what type of person would be looking for a completely anonymous email address? People looking for privacy, yes, but also shady people, hackers, spammers, etc. So naturally, many companies and governments are wary of Proton email addresses, and many of them have actually full-on blocked Proton email addresses altogether. So you'll also need to have a backup email address from one of the big providers to actually use services from these companies, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of Proton in the first place. You can get around this by using a custom domain, but that gets into the whole paid service problem all over again. In the end, ProtonMail is the perfect example of our love-hate relationship with big tech. You would think that the internet would be jumping up and down at the sight of this product. But ProtonMail has already been out for nearly 10 years, and they're still only appealing to a niche demographic. The reality is that while people hate that their data is being collected, they've also gotten used to all of the conveniences that come along with that. What Proton is trying to accomplish is truly commendable. But while they've been able to achieve a significant amount of success within a niche market, their mainstream prospects are not nearly as clear. It appears that the hurdles of getting people to pay for an email service, along with the shortfalls in terms of convenience, are simply too much to overcome. But I'd be happy to be proven wrong. Would you be willing to switch to ProtonMail? Comment that down below. Also, drop a like if you have a love-hate relationship with big tech as well. And of course, consider checking out our Discord community to suggest future video ideas and consider subscribing to see more questions logically answered. But until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.